Walter Elias Disney was born on December 5, 1901, in the Hermosa section of Chicago, Illinois. His father was Elias Disney, an Irish-Canadian, and his mother, Flora Call Disney, was German-American. Walter was one of 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. He lived most of his childhood in the Marceline, Missouri, where he began drawing and painting and selling pictures to neighbors and family friends. In 1911, his family moved to Kansas City, where Walter developed a love for trains. His uncle, Mike Martin, was a train engineer who worked the route between Fort Madison, Iowa, and Marceline. Later, Walter would work a summer job with the railroad selling snacks and newspapers to travelers. Walter attended McKinley High School in Chicago, where he took drawing and photography classes and was a contributing cartoonist for the school paper. At night, he took courses at the Chicago Art Institute. When Walter was 16, he dropped out of school to join the Army, but was rejected for being underage. Instead, he joined the Red Cross and was sent to France for a year to drive an ambulance. When Walter returned from France in 1919, he moved back to Kansas City to pursue a career as a newspaper artist. His brother, Roy, got him a job at the Pesman Rubin Art Studio, where he met cartoonist Hubert Iwerks, better known as Ub Iwerks. From there, Walter worked at the Kansas City Film and Company, where he made commercials based on cutout animation. Around this time, Walter began experimenting with the camera, doing hand-drawn cell animation, and decided to open his own animation business. From the ad company, he recruited Fred Harmon as his first employee. Walter and Harmon made a deal with a local Kansas City theater to screen their cartoons, which they later called Laughograms. The cartoons were hugely popular, and Walter was able to acquire his own studio, upon which he bestowed the same name, Laughogram. Laughogram hired a number of employees, including Harmon's brother Hugh and Iwerks. They did a series of 7-minute fairy tales that combined both live action and animation, which they called Alice in Cartoonland. By 1923, however, the studio had become burdened with debt, and Walter was forced to declare bankruptcy. Walter and his brother Roy soon pooled their money and moved to Hollywood. Iwerks also relocated to California, and there the three began the Disney Brothers studio. Their first deal was the New York distributors, Margaret Winkler, to distribute their Alice cartoon S. They also invented a character called Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit, and contracted the shorts at $1,500 each. In 1925, Disney hired an ink and paint artist named Lillian Bounds. After a brief courtship, the couple married. A few years later, Walter discovered that Winkler and her husband Charles Mintz had stolen the rights to Oswald, along with all of Walter's animators except Iwerks. Right away, the Disney brothers, their wives, and Iwerks produced 3 cartoons featuring a new character Walter had been developing called Mickey Mouse. The first animated shorts featuring Mickey were Plain Crazy and The Galloping Gone Show, both silent films for which they failed to find distribution. When sound made its way into film, Walter created a third sound and music-equipped short called Steamboat Willie. With Walter as the voice of Mickey, the cartoon was an instant sensation. February 21st, 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first full-length animated film, premiered in Los Angeles. It produced an unimaginable $1.499 million in spite of the Depression and won a total of 8 Oscars. During the next 5 years, Walt Disney Studios completed another string of full-length animated films: Pinocchio, 1940, Fantasy, 1940, Dumbo, 1947, and Bambi, 1942. In December 1939, a new campus for Walt Disney Studios was opened in Burbank. A setback for the company occurred in 1941, however, when there was a strike by Disney animators. Many of them resigned, and it would be years before the company fully recovered. During the mid-40s, Walter created packaged featurettes, groups of shorts strung together to run at full feature length. But by 1950, he was once again focusing on animated features. Cinderella was released in 1950, followed by a live-action film called Treasure Island, 1950. Alice in Wonderland, 1951. Peter Pan, 1953. Lady and the Tramp, 1955. Sleeping Beauty, 1959. And 101 Dalmatians, 1961. In all, more than 100 features were produced by his studio. Walter's $17 million Disneyland theme park opened on July 17, 1955, in Anaheim, California. Within a few years of the opening, Walter began plans for a new theme park and experimental prototype community of Tomorrowland in Florida. It was still under construction when in 1966, Walter was diagnosed with lung cancer. He died on December 15, 1966, at the age of 65. Walter was cremated and his ashes interred at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Los Angeles. After Walt's death, his brother Roy carried on the plans to finish the Florida theme park, which opened in 1971 under the name of Walt Disney World. Even after Walt's death, Walt Disney Studios continued to produce movies. The Jungle Book, The Aristocats, Winnie the Pooh, Fox and the Hound, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas, Hercules, Mulan, Tarzan, Monsters Inc., WALL-E, Toy Story, Cars, Nemo, Lilo and Stitch, Brother Bear, Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Brave, Frozen, Big Hero 6, and Inside Out. Thank you for listening.